These books will help you to regain your faith in yourself. Realize that hard work pays off and miracles do happen. That's why I love these books, because they give us a sigh of relief that something good will surely happen. I know that a major setback in life can create a negative outlook towards life, but being an optimist at that time is the only important thing to do, and motivational books help you realize that failure is the first stepping stone to success. We should definitely consume inspirational material, not only to give ourselves steam boost, but also to help ourselves live a better and stress-free life. How about taking a look at this book? Make your bed by the Admiral William H. McRaven. Little things can change your life and maybe the world. If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. On May 17, 2014, Admiral William H. McRaven addressed the graduating class of the University of Texas at Austin on their commencement day. Taking inspiration from the university slogan, "What starts here, changes the world," he shared the 10 principles he learned during Navy SEAL training that helping him overcome challenges not only in this training and long naval career, but also throughout his life. And he explained how anyone can use these basic lessons to change themselves and the world for the better. Admiral McRaven's original speech went viral with more than 10 million views. Building on the core tenets laid out in his speech, McRaven now recounts tales from his own life and from those of people he encountered during his military service who dealt with hardship and made tough decisions with determination, compassion, honor, and courage. Told with great humility and optimism, this timeless book provides simple wisdom, practical advice, and words of encouragement that will inspire readers to achieve more even in life's darkest moments. If you are interested, you can check the author's commencement speech on YouTube. Okay? So let's get ready. Okay, guys, I'm ready to read the book to you. I hope you feel relaxed and sleepy after listening to this story. Chapter 1. Start your day with a task completed. If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. The barracks, a basic SEAL training, is a nondescript 3-story building located on the beach at Coronado, California, just 100 yards from the Pacific Ocean. There is no air conditioning in the building, and at night, with the windows open, you can hear the tide rolling and the surf pounding against the sand. Rooms in the barracks are Spartan. In the officer's room, where I berthed with the 3 other classmates, there were 4 beds, a closet to hang in your uniforms, and nothing else. Those mornings that I stayed in the barracks, I would roll out of my Navy rack and immediately begin the process of making my bed. It was the first task of the day, a day that I knew would be filled with uniform inspections, long swims, longer runs, obstacle courses, and constant harassment from the SEAL instructors. "Attention!" shouted the class leader. Lieutenant Junior Gray then stood as the instructor entered the room. Standing at the foot of the bed, I snapped my heel together and stood up straight as a chief petty officer approached my position. The instructor, stern and expressionless, began the inspection by checking the starch in my green uniform hat to ensure the A-sided cover was crisp and correctly blocked. Moving from top to bottom, his eyes looked over every inch of my uniform. Were the creases in the blouse and trousers aligned? Was the brass on the belt shining to a mirror-like radiance? Were my boots polished bright enough so he could see his fingers in their reflection? Satisfied that I met the high standards expected of a SEAL trainee, he moved to inspect the bed. The bed was simple as the room, nothing but a steel frame and a single mattress. A bottom sheet covered the mattress, and over that was a top sheet. A gray wool blanket tucked tightly under the mattress provided warmth from the cool San Diego evenings. A second blanket was expertly folded into a rectangle at the foot of the bed. A single pillow made by the Lighthouse for the Blind was centered at the top of the bed and intersected at a 90-degree angle with the blanket at the bottom. This was the standard. Any deviation from this exacting requirement would be cause for me to hit the surf and then roll around on the beach until I was covered head to toe with wet sand, referred to as a sugar cookie. Standing motionless, I could see the instructor out of the corner of my eye. He rarely looked at my bed. Bending over, he checked the hospital corners and then surveyed the blanket and the pillow to ensure they were correctly aligned. Then, reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a quarter and flipped it into the air several times to ensure I knew the final test of the bed was coming. With one final flip, the quarter flew high into the air and came down the mattress with a light bounce. It jumped several inches off the bed, high enough for the instructor to catch it in his hand. Swinging around to face me, the instructor looked me in the eye and nodded. He never said a word. Making my bed correctly was not going to be an opportunity for praise. It was expected of me. It was my first task of the day, and doing right was important. It demonstrated my discipline. It showed my attention to detail, and at the end of the day, it would be a reminder that I had done something well, something to be proud of, no matter how small the task. Throughout my life in the Navy, making my bed was the one constant that I could count on every day. As a young SEAL assigned aboard the USS Greyback, a special operations submarine, I was berthed in sick bay, where the beds were stacked for hire. The salty old doctor who ran sick bay insisted that I make my rack every morning. He often remarked that if the beds were not made and the room was not clean, how could the sailors expect the best medical care? As I later found out, this sentiment of cleanliness and order applied to every aspect of military life. 30 years later, the Twin Towers came down in New York City. The Pentagon was struck and brave Americans died in an airplane over Pennsylvania. At the time of the attacks, I was recuperating in my home from a serious parachute accident. A hospital bed had been wheeled into my government quarters, and I spent most of the day lying on my back trying to recover. I wanted out of that bed more than anything else. Like every SEAL, I longed to be with my fellow warriors in the fight. When I was finally well enough to lift myself unaided from the bed, the first thing I did was pull the sheets up tight, adjust the pillow, and make sure the hospital bed looked presentable to all those who entered my home. It was my way of showing that I had conquered the injury and was moving forward with my life. Within 4 weeks of September 11th, I was transferred to the White House, where I spent the next 2 years in the newly formed Office of Combating Terrorism. By October 2003, I was in Iraq at our makeshift headquarters on the Baghdad airfield. For the first few months, we slept on army cots. Nevertheless, I would wake every morning Roll up my sleeping bag, place the pillow at the head of the cot, and get ready for the day. In December 2003, US forces captured Saddam Hussein. He was held in confinement, during which time we kept him in a small room. He also slept on an army cot, but with the luxury of sheets and a blanket. Once a day, I would visit Saddam to ensure my soldiers were properly caring for him. I noticed, with some sense of amusement, that Saddam did not make his bed. The covers were always crumpled at the foot of his cot, and he rarely seemed inclined to strengthen them. During the ensuing 10 years, I had the honor of working with some of the finest men and women this nation has ever produced. From generals to privates, from admirals to seamen recruits, from ambassadors to clerk typists. The American who deployed overseas in support of the war effort came willingly, sacrificing much to protect this great nation. They all understood that life is hard and that sometimes there is little you can do to affect the outcome of your day. In battle, soldiers die, families grieve, your days are long and filled with anxious moments. You search for something that can give you solace, that can motivate you to begin your day, that can be a sense of pride in an oftentimes ugly world. But it's not just a combat, it's daily life that needs this same sense of structure. Nothing can replace the strength and comfort of one's faith. But sometimes the simple act of making your bed can give you the lift you need to start your day and provide you the satisfaction to end it right. If you want to change your life and maybe the world, start off by making your bed. If you can't do the little things right, you never do the big things right. That's something I agree. Chapter 2, You Can Go It Alone. If you want to change the world, find someone to help you battle. I learned early on in SEAL training the value of teamwork, the need to rely on someone else to help you through the difficult tasks. For those of us who were tadpoles hoping to become Navy frogmen, a 10-foot rubber raft was used to teach us this vital lesson. Everywhere we went during the first phase of SEAL training, we were required to carry the raft. We placed it on our heads as we ran from the barracks, across the highway, to the chow hall. We carried it in a long slung position as we ran up and down the Coronados and dunes. We paddled the boat endlessly from north to south, along the coastline and through the pounding surf. 7 men, all working together to get the rubber boat to its final destination. But we learned something else on our journey with the raft. Occasionally, one of the boat crew members was sick or injured, unable to give it 100%. I often found myself exhausted from the training day or down with a cold or the flu. On those days, the other members picked up the slack. They paddled harder, they dug deeper, they gave me their rations for extra strength. And when the time came later in training, I returned the favor. The small rubber boat made us realize that no man could make it through training alone. No SEAL could make it through combat alone. And by extension, you needed people in your life to help you through the difficult times. Never was the need for help more apparent to me than 25 years later when I commanded all the SEALs on the West Coast. I was the Commodore of Navy Special Warfare Group 1 Coronado, a Navy captain. I had by now spent the past several decades leading SEALs around the world. I was out for a routine parachute jump when things went terribly wrong. We were in a C-130 Hercules aircraft climbing to 12,000 feet, prepared for the jump. Looking out the back of the aircraft, we could see a beautiful California day. Not a cloud in the sky. The Pacific Ocean was calm, and from this altitude you could see the border of Mexico just a few miles away. The jump master yelled to stand by. Now, on the edge of the rim, I could see straight down to the ground. The jump master looked me in the eye, smiled, and shouted, "Go, go, go." I dove out of the aircraft, arms fully extended and legs tucked slightly behind my back. The broad blast from the aircraft sent me tilting forward until my arms caught air and I left out. I quickly checked my altimeter, made sure I wasn't spinning, and then looked around me to ensure no jumper was too close to me. 20 seconds later, I had fallen to the pool altitude of 5,500 feet. Suddenly, I looked below me and another jumper had slid beneath me, intersecting my path to the ground. He pulled his ripcord, and I could see the pilot chute deploying the main parachute from his backpack. Immediately, I thrust my arms to my side, forcing my head to the ground in an attempt to get away from the blossoming chute. It was too late. The jumper chute popped open in front of me like an airbag, hitting me at 120 miles an hour. I bounced off the main canopy and spun out of control, barely conscious from the impact. For seconds, I spun head over heels, trying to get stable again. I couldn't see my altimeter and I was unaware of how far I had fallen. Instinctively, I reached for my ripcord and pulled. The pilot chute jettisoned from its small pouch in the back of the parachute but wrapped around my leg as I continued to tumble toward the ground. As I struggled to untangle myself, the situation got worse. The main parachute partially deployed, but in doing so, twirled around my other leg. Craning my neck toward the sky, I could see my legs were bound by two sets of risers. The long nylon strap that connected the main parachute to the harness on my back. One riser had wrapped around one leg, the other riser around the other leg. The main parachute was fully out of the backpack but hung up somewhere on my body. As I struggled to break free of the entanglement, suddenly I felt the canopy lift off my body and begin to open. Looking toward my legs, I knew what was coming next. Within seconds, the canopy caught air. The two risers, one wrapped around each leg, suddenly and violently pulled apart, taking my legs with them. My pelvis separated instantly as the force of the opening ripped my lower torso. The thousand small muscles that connected the pelvis to the body were torn from their hinges. My mouth dropped open and I let out a scream that could be heard in Mexico. Searing pain arched through my body, sending waves pulsating downward to my pelvis and upward to my head. Violent, muscular convulsions wrecked my upper torso, shooting more pain from my arms and legs. Now, like having an out-of-body experience, I became aware of my screaming and tried to control it, but the pain was too intense. Still head down and falling too fast, I turned myself upright in the harness, relieving some of the pressure on my pelvis and back. 1,500 feet. I had fallen over 4,000 feet before the parachute deployed. The good news, I had a full canopy over my head. The bad news, I was broken apart by the impact of opening. I landed over 2 miles from the drop zone. Within a few minutes, the drop zone crew and an ambulance arrived. I was taken to the trauma hospital in downtown San Diego. By the next day, I was out of surgery. The accident had ripped my pelvis apart by almost 5 inches. The muscles in my stomach had become detached from the pelvic bone, and the muscles in my back and legs were severely damaged from the opening shock. I had a large titanium plate screwed into my pelvis and a long scapular screw drilled into my backside for stability. This seemed like the end of my career. To be an effective SEAL, you had to be physically fit. My rehabilitation was going to take months, maybe years, and the Navy was required to conduct a medical evaluation to determine if I was fit for duty. I left the hospital 7 days later, but remained bedridden at my home for the next 2 months. All my life, I had the feeling I was invincible. I believed that my innate athletic abilities could get me out of most perilous situations, and up to this point, I had been right. Many times during my career, I had encountered life-threatening incidents, mid-air collisions in another parachute, uncontrolled descent in a mid-sub, nearly falling hundreds of feet off an oil rig, getting trapped beneath a sinking boat, demolition that exploded prematurely, and countless more incidents where a split second decide the fate between living and dying. Each time I had somehow managed to make the right decision, and each time I was physically fit enough to overcome the challenge before me. Not this time. Now, lying in bed, all I felt was self-pity. But that would not last for long. My wife, Georgianne, had been given nursing duties. She cleaned my wounds, gave me the required daily shots, and changed my bedpan. But most importantly, she reminded me of who I was. I had never given up on anything in my life, and she assured me that I was not going to start now. She refused to let me feel sorry for myself. It was the kind of tough love that I needed. And as the days went by, I got better. My friends came by the house, called constantly, and helped with whatever they could. My boss, Admiral Eric Olson, somehow found a way around the policy that required the Navy to conduct a medical evaluation of my ability to continue to serve as a SEAL. His support for me likely saved my career. During my time in the SEAL team, I had numerous setbacks, and in each case, someone came forward to help me. Someone who had faith in my abilities, someone who saw potential in me where others might not, someone who risked their own reputation to advance my career. I had never forgot those people, and I know that anything I achieved in my life was a result of others who have helped me along the way. None of us are immune from life's tragic moments. Like the small rubber boat we had in basic SEAL training, it takes a team of good people to get you to your destination in life. You cannot paddle the boat alone. Find someone to share your life with. Make as many friends as possible, and never forget that your success depends on others. Chapter 3: Only the size of your heart matters. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart. I ran to the beach with my black rubber flippers tucked underneath my right arm and my mask in my left hand. Coming to parade the rest, I anchored the flippers in the soft sand, leaning them against each other to form a teepee. Standing to my right and left were other students, dressed in green t-shirts, khaki swim trunks, neoprene booties, and a small life jacket. We were preparing for a morning 2-mile swim. The life jacket was a small, rubberized bladder that inflated only when you pulled the handle. Among the students, it was considered shameful if you had to use your life jacket. Still, the SEAL instructors were required to inspect every life jacket before each swim. This inspection also gave the instructors an opportunity for more harassment. The surf off Coronado that day was about 8 feet high. The waves were coming in lines of 3, plunging with a roaring sound that made each student's heart beat a bit faster. As the instructor slowly moved down the line, he came to the man directly to my right. The student, a seaman recruit and brand new to the Navy, was about 5'4" in height. The SEAL instructor, a highly decorated Vietnam vet, was well above 6'2" and towered over the smaller man. After inspecting the student's life jacket, the instructor looked over his left shoulder toward the pounding surf and then reached down and grabbed the student's flippers. Holding them close to the young sailor's face, he said quietly, "Do you really want to be a frogman?" The sailor stood up straight with a look of defiance in his eyes. "Yes, instructor, I do," he shouted. "You're a tiny little man," the instructor said, waving the flippers in his face. "Those waves out there could break you in half." He paused and glanced toward the ocean. "You should think about quitting now before you get hurt." Even out of the corner of my eye, I could see the student's jaw begin to tighten. "I won't quit," the sailor replied, drawing out each word. Then the instructor leaned in and whispered something in the student's ear. I couldn't make out the words over the breaking waves. After all the trainees were inspected, the instructors ordered us into the water, and we began our swim. An hour later, I crawled out of the surf zone, and standing on the beach was the young seaman recruit. He had finished the swim near the head of the class. Later that day, I pulled him aside and asked what the instructor had whispered to him. He smiled and said proudly, "Prove me wrong." SEAL training was always about proving something. Proving that size didn't matter, proving that the color of your skin was important, proving that money didn't make you better, proving that determination and grit were always more important than talent. I was fortunate to learn that lesson a year before training began. As I boarded the city bus in downtown San Diego, I was excited about the prospect of visiting the basic SEAL training facility across the bay in Coronado. I was a first-class midshipman attending my summer cruise as part of the Naval Reserve Officers Training Corps ROTC program. As a first-class midshipman, I was between my junior and senior years in college, and if all went well, I hoped to be commissioned the following summer and head off to SEAL training. It was the middle of the week, and I had received permission from my ROCT instructor to deviate from the planned training aboard one of the ships in port and make my way to Coronado. I got off the bus outside the famed Hotel del Coronado and walked about a mile down the road to the beach side of the Naval Amphibious Base. I passed by several Korean War vintage buildings that housed underwater demolition teams 11 and 12. Outside the one-story Rambling Brick building was a large wooden sign depicting Freddy the Frog, a large green web-footed amphibian carrying a stick of TNT and smoking a cigar. This was the home of the West Coast Frogmen, those entrapped Mexican fin warriors whose military ancestors had cleared the beaches of Iwo Jima, Tarawa, Guam, and Rincon. Oh my god, I'm sorry if I said these names wrong. My heart began to beat a little faster. This was exactly where I wanted to be in a year. As I passed the underwater demolition teams, the next building belonged to SEAL Team 1. At the time, a new breed of jungle fighters who had earned their reputation in Vietnam as some of the toughest men in the military. Another large wooden sign showed Sam the SEAL, a dagger in one hand and a dark cloak wrapped around my shoulder. As I would later learn, the Frogmen and the SEALs were one and the same. All the men were graduates of SEAL training, all Frogmen at heart. Finally, I approached the last government building on the beach side of the naval base. On the other facade of the building it read, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. Standing outside the main entrance were two SEAL instructors surrounded by some young high school SEAL cadets. The two SEALs towered over the high school students. Senior Chief Petty Officer Dick Ray stood 6'3" with broad shoulders, a thin waist, a deep tan, and a dark pencil-thin mustache. It was everything I expected a SEAL to look like. Standing next to him was Chief Petty Officer Gene Vance. Well over 6 feet, Vance was built like a linebacker, with imposing biceps and a steely-eyed glare that cautioned everyone not to get too close. The Sea Cadets were ushered into the building. With some trepidation, I followed them and stopped at the front desk. I told the young sailor manning the desk my story. I was a midshipman from the University of Texas and hoped to talk with someone about SEAL training. The sailor left his desk momentarily, returning to inform me that the first phase officer, Lieutenant Dolhove, would be glad to talk with me in a few minutes. As I waited to be called into Lieutenant Hove's office, I slowly walked up and down the hall, looking at the pictures that adorned the walls. They were photos of SEALs in Vietnam, guys rising out of the waist-deep mud along the Mekong Delta. Pictures of camouflaged SEAL platoons returning from a nine-mission. Men loaded with automatic weapons and bandoliers of ammunition boarding a swift boat heading into the jungle. Down the long hall, I saw another man looking at the photos. A civilian by his attire. He was slightly built, almost frail, and a mop of dark hair hung beetle-like over his ears. He seemed to be staring in awe at the incredible warriors whose actions were portrayed in the photos. In my mind, I wondered if he thought he had what it took to be a Navy SEAL. Looking at those pictures, did he really think he was tough enough to endure the training? Did he think his small frame could carry a heavy rucksack and 1,000 rounds of ammunition? Hadn't he seen the two instructors who were just at the front door? Massive men who clearly had the right stuff. I felt a pang of sorrow that someone had misled this fellow, maybe encouraging him to live his comfortable life as a civilian and try SEAL training. A few minutes later, the sailor from the front desk calmly walked down the corridor and escorted me to Lieutenant Ruth's office. Doug Ruth was also a recruiting poster for the SEALs. Tall, muscular, with brown wavy hair, he looked very sharp in his navy khaki uniform. I sat in a chair across from Ruth's desk, and we talked about SEAL training and the demands of the program. Ruth told me about his experience in Vietnam and what life would be like in the teams if I graduated from SEAL training. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see the thin man in civilian clothes as he continued to gaze at the photos on the wall. Like me, we must have been waiting to see Lieutenant Ruth in hopes of learning more about SEAL training. It made me feel good about myself knowing that I was clearly stronger and more prepared than another man who thought he could survive the rigors of being a SEAL. In the middle of our conversation, Lieutenant Ruth suddenly stopped talking, looked up from his desk, and yelled to the man in the hall. I stood up as Ruth motioned the thin man to come into his office. "Bill, this is Tommy Norris," he said, giving the thin man a big bear hug. Tommy was the last SEAL Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam, Ruth added. Norris smiled, somewhat embarrassed by the introduction. I smiled back, shook his hand, and laughed at myself. This seemingly frail, mop-haired man, who I doubt could make it through training, was Lieutenant Tom Norris. Tom Norris, who had served in Vietnam, had on successive nights gone deep behind enemy lines to rescue two downed airmen. This was Tom Norris, who, on another mission, was shot in the face by North Vietnamese forces and left for dead only to be rescued by Petty Officer Mike Norton, who would later receive the Medal of Honor for those actions. This was Tom Norris, who battled back from his injury to be accepted into the FBI's first hostage rescue team. This quite reserved, humble man was one of the toughest SEALs in the long history of the teams. In 1969, Tony Norris was almost booted out of SEAL training. They said he was too small, too thin, and not strong enough. But much like the young sailor in my class, Norris proved them all wrong and once again showed that it's not the size of your flippers that count, just the size of your heart. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed so far. I know this video got long, so I'm gonna read the rest in the next video, okay?